Hey, everyone. Okay. I need you to type in the chat if you can hear me. Yes, can you hear me? No, you can't hear me. Yes, thank you. All right, good. Great. All right. Great. Glad you can hear. All right, let's wait a few minutes for people to come in. All right. Maybe while we're waiting, you can just type in the chat a little bit about yourself. Are you divorced? Are you single? Never married? Are you married and just interested in what I have to say, which is totally cool? All right, divorced. All right. Thanks, Fred. All right. Okay, so we have the chat, and then we also have the Q&A. So if you ever have any questions while I'm talking, feel free to type in the Q&A, and I'll try to get to it as soon as I can. Okay, great, Shauna. I'm glad to hear that you're excited for what I have to say, and that's a lot to be going through a divorce right now. Totally have been there, done that, and it's a lot. Okay. All right, we'll take a few more minutes and then we'll get started. Okay. Hi, Julie. Thank you for coming. Okay, so I'm just going to start by introducing myself. I'm having a little bit of a hair problem. It's not staying out of my hair, out of my eyes, but we'll hope for the best. Okay, so just to introduce myself, I got married when I was 20 years old to the first guy I ever dated. And that was quite a lesson for me in what not to do. So I am giving this webinar to tell you what not to do, basically to avoid the mistakes I made so that you can live happily even after. And I apologize that my bathroom door is open in the background, but thankfully it's clean. Okay, so what to do, what not to do. Okay, so when I was 20 years old, okay. Video. Do you not see my video? Do you only hear me and not see my video? Looks fine. Okay. Oh, the bathroom. Okay. Naftali, you see just me, not anyone else. Okay. That's how it's supposed to be. It's a webinar. It's not like a Zoom conference. It's just a webinar. You're only going to see me. That's how it's supposed to be. Okay. All right. We're good. We're good. Okay. So going back to myself and my and my dating when I first started. Okay, so I was 20 years old. I want to say that I was a pretty smart kid. Like I was the kind of kid that was always like getting straight A's, and I thought I was a pretty deep person, and I thought that like I was knowledgeable about the ways of the world, but I was honestly very naive. And I went on 10 dates with my husband, and we got engaged after 2 months. And it turned out to be a very difficult marriage. And we had a child right away, and I stayed as long as I could. And then 11 years into it, I said, I just can't do this anymore, and I left. So that's a little bit about me. And in retrospect, there's just a lot of things that I wish I had known, and I want to share with you. Gal says me too. I don't know what the me too is for. I just want to say a couple things. First of all, I don't believe in mistakes. I believe that everything is meant to happen for a reason. So I don't, when I say that I want you to learn from my mistakes, I mean it kind of in a general way, in a more, you could say Zen way of looking at the world, or a holistic or spiritual way of looking at the world. There are no mistakes. Everything is meant to happen. And I believe that I was meant to marry the person I married. I was meant to have the daughter that I had. I'm very grateful that I have the daughter that I have and the experiences that I've had. At the same time, I do believe that I suffered in my marriage, and I am trying to prevent other people from suffering. So I think it's Tony Robbins or maybe some other spiritual teacher who said that from your pain comes your purpose. And if the fact that I went through that pain in my marriage is there for me, I believe it's there to give me my purpose, which is to help other people. And that's why I became a dating coach, is to help other people get into beautiful, good relationships and lasting relationships. So I know that there's this principle in, life coaching and in just the world in general, that you create your own happiness. And I believe that. And at the same time, I also believe it's a lot harder to create your own happiness when your marriage is hell. And a bad marriage can really feel like hell. So it's my hope to prevent people from getting into hellish marriages and into marriages that feel like heaven, like your personal heaven, and feel just loving and beautiful and healthy. So that's a little bit about me and why I'm doing what I'm doing, why I became a relationship coach, why I became a dating coach, why I formed my business, which is called Happily Even After. And I want to thank you all for joining me on this first webinar. I know it's free, it's a free webinar, but you're still paying for it, you could say, with your time and with, that time is a resource that everyone is giving up right now. And I want you to take this webinar as if it's a paid webinar, because you are paying for it with your time, and to really internalize it and take the lessons that you can from it. And if there's any questions that you have for me, I'm happy to follow up with you. So let's really value this time together and dive in together. Okay. So without further ado, here are the 5 lessons that I've learned, the tips that I've learned that will transform your dating life so that you can really take your dating, I called it from meh to yeah. Like from meh is like kind of like unexcited to yeah, like I'm excited about this. I'm really into it. Okay, so tip number 1. I don't have slides. I'm just going to tell you. Tip number 1 is, oh gosh, sorry. Tip number 1 is know yourself. So I thought this was great because I had posted on Facebook, I wanted to do a poll of people to see, like, what do you wish you had known before you got married? And someone answered myself. And I thought that was so clever. Like, what do you wish you had known before you got married? Yourself, because that is like really kind of the most important thing to know before you get married is, who am I? Who am I? What do I want? What are my goals in life? What's important to me? What are my dreams? What do I really need in life in order to feel fulfilled? And what do I really need from a relationship? What do I really need from a partner to be happy? So I would say, like, think about the things that you really want in your life. Take some time, journal, meditate, think about what's really important to you. Everyone has dreams, right? Everyone has something that if they don't fulfill that in their life, they're going to feel that their life was not fulfilling for them. So you want to take some time before you date. You want to take some time to sit down with yourself and your thoughts and just write it out. What's important to you? By the time you die, what do you want to have accomplished? What kind of home do you want to have? What's a home that's similar to the kind that you would want to have? Like maybe you have friends that you really love their household and their marriage, and you want something similar to that. What does that look like to you? Do they have an open home? Do they have a lot of guests? Do they love to travel? Or what is it that you really want? Is there something that deep down, like, you need this in order to be happy? So think about that first, because if you don't get that in your marriage, you're going to feel very unfulfilled. Like, for example, if you want a big family and you don't bring that up when you're dating, and in the end your spouse really doesn't want a big family, wants only 1 or 2 kids, and you're just going to feel unfulfilled if without that, that's something to really think about beforehand. Right. So these are the kind of things that I kind of wish I had known beforehand, because there were things that I just assumed that we would be on the same page about, and we weren't. So, think about your dream. Think about, is it to travel the world? Is it to be an artist? If your dream is to be an artist, you need to have a partner who's willing to support that lifestyle. That might mean that your partner is the one bringing in the money for now. It might mean that you're living a simpler lifestyle. So think about what it is that you really want, and what you need in order to feel fulfilled. So one of the foremost relationship experts who I really love, who I encourage you to research if you haven't already, is John Gottman. And he says the difference between happy couples and unhappy couples is that the happy couples understand that helping each other realize their dreams is one of the goals of marriage. I just think that's so beautiful, because we all have dreams, and that's part of feeling fulfilled, is feeling that your partner is there with you, on the same page as you, and respects your goals and you respect their goals. So that's really, I think, the core of a good marriage, is that you're there to support each other's deepest dreams. And the problem is when dreams are hidden or not respected by your spouse. So you want to communicate that early on in your dating process, what your dreams are, what your goals are, what you really want out of life, and see if that person is there to support you on that. Like, for example, I'm a dating coach, right? Some guys might feel uncomfortable going out with someone who's a dating coach, but that would be like my dream in my life right now, and I would need somebody who could support that. So if you bring up your dreams to somebody and they're like, nah, I don't know if that's such a good idea, are you sure about that? That might be something to you that you're not okay with. You're not okay with having somebody who doesn't support that. So just think about what that would mean to you if those things were not coming to fruition in your marriage. A big one is religion. I mean, this is like very core part of our identity. Are you on the same page with your spouse in terms of religion, in terms of what you're passing on to your children and things like that? So really think about what you need in your life to feel like this is fulfilling for me. Like, I have a fulfilling life with this person. So again, from John Gottman, he says, in a happy marriage, neither spouse insists or attempts to manipulate the other into giving up their dream. So it's just interesting, because like you want to bring it up beforehand, and then you also want to keep that dream alive even after you get married. Like, I know with my spouse, with my ex, I did bring up something before we got married. I said, I want to go get my master's after we got married. I want to go back to school, get my master's. And he's like, I support you. And then once we got married, he kind of no longer supported me. He said, it's too much, student loans, all that. So that kind of bothered me, that he didn't stick to kind of what he said he would do beforehand in terms of the support. So you want to think about, what is it that's really important to you, and how willing are you to stick with it? Like, how willing are you to give it up or not give it up, right? You kind of don't want to be with someone who's really not supportive in any way. They might say yes. I see a politician. That's great. You might realize that your dreams change while you're married. You might realize that whatever it is, you have new dreams, but you hope that your partner will support you along the way. And that is perhaps one of the reasons why things ended with my ex, is that we weren't really supporting each other's dreams. Okay, Naftali says, how do you know if people are earnest and frank and honest when they tell you things as you date? Yes. Okay. Yeah. Okay, so here's the thing. You do the best you can. You ask the right questions. You do your research. You do the best you can beforehand, and really kind of test the person like a few times, maybe, by asking questions in different ways. At the end of the day, there will be surprises probably when you get married, and then it's up to you to decide how you want to deal with that. Okay, so let's say in my case, my ex wasn't supportive of me going back to school. So then it's up to me. Do I want to go back to school anyways, even without his support? Which might mean, me having to arrange babysitters for my daughter because he was not willing to babysit, or whatever it is, whatever that means. So do I want to do it anyways without his support? Do I want to not do it and kind of feel resentful? Do I want to not do it and try to let go of the resentment and see if I can let go of that? I think that's hard for people to let go of a dream. If they really have a dream, it's very hard to let go of it. It's an option, but it's very hard. For example, if you have a dream of a big family and your ex is unwilling to have, or your spouse is unwilling to have a big family with you, it can be very hard to let go of that dream. So then at that point, it's up to you. Do you want to stay in the relationship and not get those needs met? Or do you want to leave the relationship, right? So dreams are kind of one of the deepest things of the relationship, where if you're not getting it fulfilled, it might cause the end of the relationship. So those are the things that are really important to bring up in advance. Okay. Did I kind of answer your question? All right. Okay, so in a happy marriage, the couple will work things out as a team. And sometimes that means putting your dream on hold to support your spouse's dream, or vice versa, or both of you put your dreams on hold. Like, for example, let's say the wife wants to go back to school, using my example, or the husband wants to quit his high-paying job and become an entrepreneur, right? So probably both happening at the same time is not the best thing practically. So you can have a couple things happen. Maybe the husband decides to stay at his job for a little longer until the wife finishes school. Maybe the wife decides to postpone going back to school for an X amount of time. Maybe they both decide that it's not practical right now for both of them to pursue their dreams. But whatever it is, they work it out as a team. And that's what matters the most, is how do you communicate with each other? Do you have mutual respect for each other? Do you acknowledge the other person's dream? Are you really able to communicate together? So those are the main things to kind of keep in mind when you're dating, is like, how good is your communication? How good is your problem solving skills together? How do you resolve conflicts between you? Those are really key things to look at. So I actually have a conscious dating program, which I will discuss more about later. But one of the first things that we do is we talk about our visions for the future, and what we feel our purpose is in life, why we're here, why God put us on this planet, what we envision for our future, what we envision with our partner. And I think that's just so important to have those visioning exercises. Gal says, are we suggesting creating conflict during dating? I wouldn't say intentionally creating conflict. I would say intentionally bringing up hard topics and seeing how the two of you can resolve those differences together. Not kind of assuming things, not pushing things under the rug, not avoiding the hard things and just having fun. It's so easy to just, let's have fun together, right? But really, it's like, can we talk about the hard things? Like, where are we going to send our kids to school? Like if you have a Sephardi and Ashkenazi couple, it's like, how are we going to raise the kids? And, money issues I'm going to go into more of that later, but you have to be willing to bring up the hard topics and see what happens, right? See how the two of you can resolve those conflicts. So just for myself, like what I realized when I did these visioning exercises is I realized that it was really important to me to be with somebody who has a sense of contribution to the world and wants to make the world a better place. And that's kind of something that I realized that I kind of didn't realize right away when I started dating the second time around after I got divorced and started dating again. I was just kind of dating anyone who fit into certain parameters. And what I discovered is certain things really are important to me. And we'll go into that more later. Okay, so that was step number one, which was know yourself, right? Know what's important to you, know what you need, know what your non-negotiables are. What are the things you are for sure are your red lines? Like you're not even going to date someone who has XYZ, right? So that's important first, to know yourself, know what you really need, what you really want, what's important to you deep down. Okay, so now after you've figured out what you really want, then you have step two, which is to do your research. Okay, so now you're out looking for the guy or the girl, if you're a guy, who's going to fit your criteria, right? So there's this concept in marketing that you're for the few, not for the many, right? So when you're marketing yourself as a single, it's pretty much similar, that you're for the few, not for the many, right? You're not trying to attract every single person out there. You're probably looking for somebody who's in a certain age range, certain religion, maybe location, maybe can relocate. In my case, it's someone who wants more kids. And you have your parameters, right? But beyond that, you have your, what I want to call essence-based preferences, right? So kind of like what we spoke about before is your dreams, like your deep desires. Can you articulate that kind of in your profile? Like, can you a little bit give a sense of who you are? Like if it's really important to you to stay fit and go hiking, like I'm looking for that special partner who's going to love, going hiking first thing in the morning with me, whatever it is. So try to tailor your profile to attract the few, right? Those people that will resonate with your essence of what you're looking for. Okay. Then another part of my dating strategy is to research people. And some of you might find this old-fashioned or intrusive, but I find it very, very helpful. So probably if you've dated me, I don't know if anyone on this webinar is people that I've already dated, but you know that we did a lot of research into you. It's kind of like the FBI, right? So we call your references, your friends, your mentors, who you have that knows you well, that can vouch for you, right? You want to call these people, you want to ask them the hard questions like, what are their flaws? What are their weaknesses? What are their strongest points? If they got divorced, why are they divorced? What can you tell me about the divorce or their ex? Shauna says, is a profile actually necessary? There's a lot of different opinions about that. I would say that profiles are important because it just gives people a sense of who you are. Like you can just look at it quickly and be like, they check these boxes. All right, check. Now we can get to know the person a little bit better. Otherwise, you're having a hard time. Just that's so broad. Like, how are you finding someone without their profile? I don't know if profiles are necessary per se. You can get engaged without one, but I would say not to close that avenue of finding people. Okay. All right. What red flags to an arguments, conflicts in a relationship? Okay, we're going to go into that. Gal says, getting to previous question, religion can create lots of conflict. Resolving conflict is all based on not just your dreams, but also profiles that get presumed and not necessarily true. I'm not sure your question. Is that a statement or a question? Are you saying that people assume things based on the profile? You want your profile to be clear about who you are, right? You want to attract the people, who will resonate with you. So like, for example, on my profile, I wrote for religion, I wrote things like, I want a Torah true home. I'm Chabad. I'm looking for someone Chabad or Chabad friendly, right? So I kind of gave like a little bit of wiggle room. It doesn't have to be Chabad, but someone's like close to Chabad, right? So you want to kind of look for the people who meet your parameters, narrow down the search as much as possible, and stop wasting your time. Okay. All right. So research questions to ask. I mean, you can just start, when you're researching people, just ask, tell me about the person and see what they say. Sometimes you have people who will just tell you so much stuff about the person because that person has left such a good impression on so many people that, like, you say, tell me about the person, and like all the stuff comes out. Oh, they have so much chesed, and they're giving, and they're kind, and they just don't stop talking about the person because that person has such a good reputation, or such good friendships, or such a good rapport with people, right? And then you have the people that you kind of have to pull things out of them because they're like, oh, I don't really know the person that well. I don't really know what to say. And you have to kind of pull information out of people. So it's also tells you a little bit when you see the way that people talk about other people. And it's sometimes you need to be more specific with your questions. Like if they're not giving you so much, can you give me an example of a way that this person exhibited kindness? Let's say kindness is one of your important qualities. So can you give me an example of a way this person exhibited kindness? And you want to, sorry. You want to really try to get to know the person. Someone who's resisting the serious discussions, future goals, even after months of dating. That to me is a red flag. If they're not willing to talk about the serious discussions, I would definitely try to pin them down and have that, not physically, but have that conversation. And if they're not, you might want to just walk away, because if you can't talk about it now, I don't know if you'll be able to talk about it later. Okay. So again, about research, to go back to the idea of researching someone, is it proper to research yourself? I would say that you might have to, unless you have someone to do it for you. And you can speak to me about that if you need someone to do it for you. But it is important to also ask the references, who else can I speak to? Who else can I speak to who is not on their list of references? Because you want to find out the people that they're not necessarily advertising as their references. Okay. How do we research the researchers? Well, that's what I'm saying before, is that you want to ask the references, who else can I speak to? Who else knows this person? And speak to the people who they didn't list as their references, because of course they're going to list the people that will say good things about them. Okay. All right. Also, other ways to find out about the person. Google them. This is probably obvious. Everyone's probably doing that. Look at their social media. See if you have friends in common. Speak to those friends. Say, I noticed your friends in common with this person on Facebook. Do you actually know the person in real life? What can you tell me about them? Right? So I actually had someone do that with me. She called me and she said, hey, I see that we have, you're friends with this guy. What can you tell me about him? And I'm like, oh, I dated him and it didn't go well. You want to hear? I'll let you know. So I really tried to give him the benefit of the doubt and not like color her opinion too much, but it is good to hear from friends, right? Setting up friends is one of the best ways to meet people. And also, if you're dating someone, I would highly recommend that you try to end it as well as possible, because you might want to date her friend one day. So people talk, right? So you want to kind of leave things as respectful as possible. Okay. All right. So one question could be, can I just go out with a person, see if we're compatible, and then like later down the line, we'll do some research? So I would say no. Don't do it. I've done it. It's usually ended in a disaster. I'll just give you a couple examples. So when I first got divorced, I wasn't dating right away. It took me about 1.5 years for my divorce to be finalized. So I didn't date right away. But the first guy I did date seriously after my divorce was somebody that was someone in the community set me up with. And I went out with him without doing any research. And I enjoyed, I wanted to go out with him again. And then afterwards, we did some research on him, and I was very much like in my mode of like, give everyone the benefit of the doubt. And I had already like heard his life story. We had gone out together. I had already heard his life story. So I really like gave him the benefit of the doubt, and, was willing to overlook those things that might have been red flags had I done the research first. And then we went out for a few months, I think it was. And in the end, all the anger issues did come out, and our relationship ended. So I do think it's important to do your research. Another story, somebody that I had talked to, I met him on JWed, and we spoke on the phone. We did FaceTime or something, and I enjoyed our conversation. And then I said, after the conversation, I said, can I get some references? And he's like, why do you want references? We just had a good conversation. Now you want references? And I'm like, oh no, he's getting defensive. This is not good. And so I said, yeah, I do want your references. I know we had a good conversation. Maybe I should have asked for references first, but I'm asking for them now. Can I have references? And he says, well, I don't know if my references have anything like good to say about me. What if they hate me? What if they this? And I'm like thinking like, come on, you must have someone who likes you. You must have someone who can say good things about you. Can you give me some references, please? So he gave me a couple of references. We found other references that he did not give us as well. When I say we, I mean my dad. He helps me a lot with my research. So research can be very time consuming. So thankfully I have someone who is willing to put in the time. Like I said, if you don't have someone who's willing to do research for you, let me know, I can help you out. So we called his references and the ones who were not listed and not hear great things about him. What's SOS help? So we didn't hear great things about him, but I was like in my mode of, oh, maybe they're not telling the whole story, and give him the benefit of the doubt. And I spoke to him about it. I'm like, look, I have to talk to you about some of the things references said. And he was like, I can't believe you spoke to those people. They don't really know me, and and they're just bad mouthing me. And I was like, okay, if you say so. And then he said, can I come date you? And I'm like, okay. Bad idea. Bad idea. It turned out really awful. The dates were really awful. He flew out here, and then I was kind of stuck with him for a few days, and it did not go well. So I realized I really have to stick with my process, right? My process is to do my research. The research wasn't great. Stick with that. Don't like give the benefit of the doubt and be so nice. That's not what dating is about. Dating is not about like giving the benefit of the doubt. Dating is about like screening people out. Screen them out. Find the good ones, right? You don't have to date everyone on the earth just because they want to date you. So I just realized I learned a lot then about having boundaries, respecting my process, and honoring that. Okay. Also, pay attention to red flags. Sometimes references don't tell the truth and expect the person to find out on their own. Okay, so you'll find out some things on your own. There are things you will find out. References are not the end all be all. They're just the beginning. Okay, you still have to be on the lookout when you date the person. Which leads us to my next point, number 3. Can I use my parole officer as a reference? Believe it or not, I've had another guy ask me that before. I would not tell that to anyone seriously. Okay. Okay. Gal says, I screened out so many because of references. Okay. Yeah, I do. Sometimes your references, the references are really helpful. Learned a lot of, yes, Chaim, I get it. Okay. But the guy that told me that was not kidding. I mean, he was kidding, but he did have a parole officer. He wouldn't actually use them as a reference, but he actually had been in jail. I have a lot of experiences. Okay, so, all right. So the next point number 3 is don't assume, right? We all know what happens when you assume, don't assume. Okay, so someone says, how do I know what to ask references if I know they will say good things anyways? So that's why you want to ask questions like, what are their flaws? What are their weaknesses? You know, you want to ask questions that will force them to say something, right? All right, again, the references are not the end all be all. They're just the beginning, right? So just because all the references were good doesn't mean you're still not on your guard when you're dating and you're not asking all the right questions yourself and just seeing how they act in person, right? So yes, references could lie. That's why we use our common sense when we date, but sometimes references are saying things that are really important to know, like this person has a mental illness, or this person has a porn addiction, or this person is a pedophile. Those are all things I found out with research. Okay, so the research is important, very important. Okay, so all right, so my next point number 3. All right, so we did number 1 was know yourself. Number 2 is do your research. Number 3 is don't assume. All right, so don't assume, ask the right questions, right? Don't, like when you're on a date, you want to ask all the right questions to find out who is this person. I wouldn't say on the first date, interview them like it's a job interview. That's probably not so fun. Maybe the first date can be a little more casual, just getting to know the person, having fun. But as you get more serious, you want to start asking the more serious questions. There's actually another great book by John Gottman called 8 Dates, where he discusses like the really important things to talk about on a date and the main things that lead to conflict in marriages. So I'll just go through those things briefly. Okay, so the first one is trust and commitment. What do you do when your date doesn't want to ask any questions? You're going to ask the questions to your date and then answer the questions that you asked about yourself as well. Okay, yes, Gottman. So Gottman has 8 dates that he recommends. So the first one is called trust and commitment. So what are your trust issues? What are your commitment issues? What are your deal breakers? What would cause you to walk away from a relationship? All right, those are important things to know. Yes, Gottman. John Gottman. Okay, so the second thing I can write in the chat here. His book is called 8 Dates. All right. So all right, 8 dates. Did everyone get that? Am I getting that in the chat? Okay. All right, so the second thing is how to deal with conflict, right? We talked about that, how to deal with conflict. And you can just bring up things that are important. You know, for example, what are your pet peeves? What do you do when you're angry? How angry do you get? If we would have an issue together between the two of us, how would we resolve it? What therapist would you go to? What rabbi would you go to? You want someone who's willing to work on conflict and resolve conflict. I've dated guys who are like, no, I will never go to therapy. No outside person is going to be involved in my marriage. And I was like, yeah, I don't think you're for me. So you want to have some way to resolve conflict if there's an issue, right? The third thing is sex and intimacy. Something to bring up. So in terms of how to do that, especially as religious couples, might not be so easy, but I think it is important to bring up at some point, maybe when you're kind of pretty committed at that point or getting close to the idea of being committed, just bring up like, is there anything I should know, about your preferences? If someone has been sexually active in the past, you might want to ask if they have any STDs. You might want to ask if they have any fetishes or anything like that, like things that you need to know for your healthy sex life. Do you snore? Great question. Okay. So Gal says, we trust less. Please expand. Okay. Yes. So in terms of trust issues, I think that's important for you to figure out if you have any trust issues yourself. It is harder to get into a relationship the second time around because you know what could go wrong the first time around. It's very easy when you're 20 years old like me and rushing into a marriage. And it's a lot harder when you know the seriousness of it, right? You know that like, oh my gosh, when I get married, I want this to be for life. I want this to be with someone that I will want to be with for life. Like, what does that mean, right? So I think that it's important to kind of deal with your own trust issues, to see if the other person has trust issues, and ask them what is your deal breaker, and let them know what your deal breakers are. You might have deal breakers like infidelity or if you lie to me, that's a trust issue. Like, I will leave you. Some people have said that. You have to really talk about what are the red lines that neither of you are going to cross in order for it to work. And you can ask things like, what do you need from me to know that I'm committed to you, or things like that. Or if you've been together a while, it's like you can ask, is there anything that in the past where you felt like you couldn't trust me? So there are things to bring up to test the trust and the commitment of the relationship. Okay, so the first was trust and commitment. The second was how to deal with conflict. The third was sex and intimacy. The fourth is work and money, right? Money is a big issue in marriages and work, the division of work and labor. So you might want to ask the questions. Are you a spender? Are you a saver? Did your parents have savings? Did you go on vacations as a child? How frugal were your parents? You want to think about that for yourself as well. Think about what's your relationship with money and what's important to you. Like, maybe it's important to you to feel secure, to really have savings. And maybe the other person just wants to live a little. Maybe they grew up poor and they really want to be able to spend their money and enjoy life, right? So you want to kind of bring those things up beforehand. You want to share your hopes and all your fears regarding money. If you want to save up for a house and the other person is fine renting and using money towards tuition or trips or whatever it is, like, those are things to talk about. If you're in a significant amount of debt, also something to talk about. I would say money issues comes later. Money issues comes later in the relationship. Don't bring it up too early. People can get scared off. I would say bring it up closer to the time that you're ready to commit to the person. Okay, trust is mentioned a few times. How to measure the response. Imagine dating a used car dealer. Not sure how to answer that question. I would say that you have to use your intuition when you're talking to people and really kind of see where people are coming from. I'm not quite sure how to answer your question. Okay. Let me know if you have a more specific way of asking that. Trust yourself. Yes. Yes. Okay. Fifth thing to bring up is family and children. We spoke about this before. How many children do you want to have? How do you want to raise your children? What values do you want to impart to them? What religion do you want to have? What level of religion? What schools do you want to send them to? And then you might want to go into, sorry for the cough. Okay. I need some water. Where's my assistant? Just bring me water. Okay. So you might want to go into more detail. Like, if you can have children, are you willing to adopt? Or are you willing to pay for the costs of IVF? Or things like that, right? So these might be more in detail discussions depending on your situation, where you're at in life. You might not be having more children, but you might be dealing with having stepchildren. So you might want to talk about that. Like, what is the role of the step parent? Do you want your new spouse to discipline your child or not? Do you want them to back off? You might want to talk about those type of issues, or other family issues. How often do you want to spend time with my family? How often do you want to spend time with your family? Do you want to do family vacations with all my siblings together, or would you rather jump a cliff? So you want to really see where that person's at, especially if you're a very family-oriented person and you spend a lot of time with your family. You want to know, is that person willing to do that or not? Don't assume things again. So just for myself, I know, like, when I was dating my ex, I assumed things. Like, for example, I remember he asked me, what kind of Shabbos table do you want to have? And I said, just like my parents, I want to have a lot of guests, good food, singing, talking Dvar Torahs, good time. That's what I want to have. And I didn't even ask him, what do you want? I didn't even ask him, because I just assumed that what I wanted was what anyone would want. And guess what? That's not what he wanted. He was kind of antisocial and didn't want to have a lot of guests and didn't want to go out for meals. And that was really hard for me as a more social person who liked hosting and having guests, right? So it's important to ask the questions and not just assume that just because you want something, the other person's going to comply. Okay, how useful is it to speak to an ex-spouse of the person you are thinking of dating? I have never spoken to an ex-spouse, mostly because I think that person probably is very biased. And I don't know, I might do it. It depends on the situation. It hasn't happened yet. In regards to trust, how do we trust someone who says, I love you? If someone's saying I love you very soon into the dating process, I would be a little bit skeptical, because love does not happen that fast. It's lust or it's infatuation, but I wouldn't call it love. So if someone says I love you early on, I would just take it with a grain of salt and be like, okay, that's nice that you're saying that, but let's give our relationship a little bit more time to develop before I am willing to really trust that that's true. When do you ask why their marriage broke up and expect an honest answer? I probably wouldn't ask it right away. Maybe a few dates in, I would ask. Expect an honest answer. You're never going to get the full answer from the person, right? They're always going to kind of give their spin on it. I have been asked immediately. It's true. People can ask immediately. I personally wouldn't ask immediately. I don't think people like to hear that the first date. I personally like to get deep right away. I'm not such a chit chatter. I like to kind of have the deep conversations right away. So I actually don't mind bringing it up on the first date, but some people do mind. So I would just kind of be respectful of that. As a divorcee, how much are you supposed to divulge when you're dating? In terms of your past marriage, I mean, how much do you divulge? I guess whatever is necessary for the other person to know. I mean, you don't have to bash your spouse, your ex-spouse, too much, just kind of give like a little overview of the things that bothered you and the things you don't want anymore in your new relationship, and the things that are important to you that you've learned, and maybe a little bit about why it ended, but you don't have to sit there and harangue your ex. That's also not the most appealing thing when you spend your time just bashing your ex, right? No one wants to hear that. So you might just want to have a little bit of prudence when it comes to that. Just, say in brief, this is why it didn't work. And maybe you don't want to, maybe it's painful, maybe it's traumatic, maybe you feel triggered, maybe you just want to say in brief, we weren't meant for each other. So it really depends on what you're comfortable sharing. Okay. We're all swayed by media, red flags, ours and others' horror stories. As a man, I have dated women who do not trust either based on their failed relationships. How do we compete with such things? Some ladies are not as honest as we are tonight. It takes time to build trust, to ask such sensitive topics, which I have with serious relationships. What is the right time to get into these sensitive topics? Okay. I would say within the first 3 months of dating somebody, you want to be able to talk about the serious things, right? Maybe the first few weeks you're just having fun and you're just seeing if you enjoy each other's company and if there's some chemistry. But within the first 3 months, you want to have all the hard questions answered. After that, you're just wasting your time if you keep going. Okay. How long do you think infatuation lasts for? How do you know the person seems infatuated about you? Um, I've had people tell me they love me before they met me in person. I've had people tell me they love me after the first date. To me, that's not real love, right? So if someone says I love you after 3 months of dating, I have a better sense that I can trust that it's love. To me, it's infatuation if it's like so soon, like that to me is not real. And I would say that about myself too. If I feel like I really love the person and I haven't really dated them very long, like I have to question that about myself as well. Am I just infatuated? Do I really know this person? And I think one of the things we learn is that love comes over time. It comes with giving. It comes with really getting to know the person deeply. So love is really something that builds over time. You're not going to get that right away. Wow, we are almost at the top of the hour and we did not finish all my 5 steps. So how do I get the recording? I will be sending out the recording to everyone after. Okay. How do I overcome the fear of making a mistake as in the past marriage and not knowing someone till living with them? Fear is a big factor in dating, especially second time round. So I think that's important. That's why, when I work with my clients one-on-one, we really go into very specifically what you're looking for so that you can be very clear about what you're looking for. And then when you find that person, this is the guy I'm looking for, right? So of course, you might always have that fear, but if enough things check out, right, you can kind of say like, there's 3 questions, by the way, that I always want to ask myself or my clients. It's what does your head say? What does your heart say? And what does your gut say? Okay, those are 3 questions to ask yourself when you're dating. And it's very important to kind of check in with yourself and see how you really feel. Like it might intellectually work and your heart's in it too. And maybe your intuition is like a little scared, right? So you have to find, is that just fear? Is it just fear because of your past issues? Or are you hesitating because there's something about this person that is that is unsettling to you, right? So that's kind of something to look into, and maybe with a mentor. Okay. All right. Do I think that divorcees should only date divorcees? In other words, we experience having children that singles don't have. Okay. You can have a divorcee married to a single who's never been married. You will have different experiences, especially if you have children. They're not going to quite understand what that's like for you. It can work. It's just, again, it's about the communication. Okay, can you repeat that? What was it that I was supposed to repeat? I don't know. Practically speaking, how can a dating relationship progress to the next level during COVID, particularly if it's a long distance relationship? I'm in no way seeking to open a debate about mask wearing or social distancing. Please assume for the sake of the question that both people are committed to following social distancing protocol. Good question. Really tough right now during COVID. I'd say do the video chatting as much as you can. Of course, nothing is going to compare to in-person dating. If it's long distance, you're going to have a problem, especially if you're social distancing, if no one's willing to fly to each other right now during COVID, you're going to have a problem because you cannot really get to know a person over a video chat. You really have to get to know the person in person. I don't know a good answer to that question right now. I would just say, if you do feel comfortable flying, if one of you does feel comfortable flying to see each other and you can still, be socially distanced and wear masks or whatever it is when you're near each other. But being in person matters a lot. I mean, I've had people that I had this great relationship with over FaceTime, and then when I met them in person, I was like, oh, no. Right? So very important to, as soon as possible, try to make it work in person. Otherwise, this COVID could go on for a while, and it might not be a real relationship until you actually meet in person. Okay. Oh, what does your head say? What does your heart say? And the third one was, what does your gut say? What does your intuition say? That's a really important one. Very important. Okay. Do you give a pass to someone who displays a temper once? Maybe. It depends how they display their temper and what was it about. Usually if it's once, it's going to be again, right? And you want to see what's the kind of things that set them off. So I was dating this one guy and he displayed some temper towards someone, and I thought it was justified. I thought it was okay. And then he displayed it towards me, and then I was not so happy anymore. So you want to just be cautious and careful. Okay. All right. Any more questions? All right. I do have more to say. So even though we are at the top of the hour, I'm going to continue. You're welcome to go off the call, and I will send recordings to you afterwards. For those of you who have time to stay on the call, I'm going to just continue with my webinar. Okay. All right. All right, more questions to ask. All right, talking about the 8 dates of that. Get the lady some water. I know. Where's my assistant? Oh, well, take a water break. It's okay. I can do this. Okay. So play and adventure, very important. What do you like to do for fun? That's an important thing, right? You want to go have fun with a person. It's kind of an underrated part of marriage and relationships, but it must be fun. It must be playful. So go see what your idea of a fun date is. Do you like to go hiking together? You want to go to an amusement park together? You want to go boating together? Maybe go to a concert. Like, not every date should be sitting at a restaurant and eating, right? You want to have a little bit of fun and see, what does the person like to do for fun? What do you guys have in common that you both like to do? What's on your bucket list? You might want to ask the person, what's on your bucket list of things that you want to do before you die? And I think that's important. I think it's important to have something in common with your spouse that you like to do, because life just gets so serious, right? Once you start having to pay bills, and once you start having to have kids together and everything, you want to make sure that you still have that time for fun for each other. Okay. Number 7 of the 8 dates is growth and spiritual meaning, right? You want to see, what are the person's goals? What do they want to accomplish in their life? Do you share the same goals? Do you support each other's goals? What kind of beliefs do you want to pass on to your children? What does spirituality mean to you? What's your relationship like with God? I don't know how easy that is to ask somebody, but you want to kind of get a sense, depending on how important spirituality is to you, to see like where they're holding. How committed are you to your spiritual growth? In what ways are you growing? Those are all kind of important questions. If those are things that are important to you, it might not be honest. When I say spiritual, it doesn't have to be religious, but it could just be, something bigger and grander than just, paying bills until we die. Okay. An 8th date of the 8 dates of John Gottman is your dreams. Like we spoke about before, the dreams, which is kind of the core of what we need in life to feel fulfilled. What are your dreams? What dreams do you have as a child? Did your parents support your dreams? Will you be supportive of me to fulfill my dreams? Those are all important questions to ask to see if that person is on the same page as you, if you have similar dreams. I forgot what I was just going to say. Oh, my favorite question to ask on a date is, if you had all the money in the world, didn't have to work anymore, retired, what would you do with your life? And I find that's like one of the most important things for me to find out, is because I want to know, who is this person really? What do they really want to do and accomplish in this world? If money wasn't an obstacle, if we're not just having to pay our bills, who are we really? What's our identity? And I've had people, I just want to work with my hands. And to me, that's not inspiring. If you're retired and you have nothing to do and you have all the money in the world, you just want to work with your hands. Like, to me, I'm like, come on, what's the grander thing? That, for me personally, right? So when I hear someone say like, I want to help people, or whatever it is, then that to me is like, oh, okay, he has a bigger vision. So I think that to me is an important thing to find out, someone's core identity. Okay. AV says, can you please repeat the 8 quickly? Okay, so the 8 dates quickly are trust and commitment, how to deal with conflict, sex and intimacy, work and money, family and children, play and adventure, growth and spiritual meaning, and 8 is dreams. And you can look up the 8 dates from John Gottman if you need more info on that. Okay. 4th tip for my dating advice is to listen to your gut. Like we spoke about before, very, very important to listen to your gut. Because sometimes your gut's going to tell you something that your brain is not going to tell you, right? Sometimes your brain is like, everything checks out, right? This person checks all my boxes. He is, in the right age range, the right religious range, geographically desirable, whatever it is, everything checks out, but I'm just not excited. I'm feeling like so resigned by this. I'm just feeling so uninspired, right? Like, you want to pay attention to those feelings. You want to pay attention to that gut feeling. That's something I wish I had known before I got married, because I actually, when I was engaged, I actually my heart wasn't in it. And I was like so in my head at that time of my life that I pushed those feelings down under the rug a little bit, and I didn't quite honor my deeper feelings. So, so when I think about it, I think that if I had really listened to myself, I probably would have ran You know, I even remember like the day before my wedding, kind of sitting there and thinking like, I wish I could just cancel the wedding. But I was like, wedding jitters, push it away, like didn't even like acknowledge to myself my own feelings, right? I didn't trust myself. And it's so important to trust yourself, right? If there's something that's not sitting right with you, honor that, listen to it. Pay attention to your inner feelings, because those are all real, right? To you at least, right? Your feelings are real to you, and you have to honor that. And if you don't, you're living with that for the rest of your life, or you're getting divorced. Um, but you have to really see like what's going on with you and why you feel that way, you know? So like, for example, there was someone I was dating that like checked off all the boxes, but I just didn't feel it. And I just didn't feel that chemistry there. And I had to really be honest with myself that this is not something that I want to live with. And so you have to, you know, really, really ask yourself the hard questions. Like, am I excited by this? Am I happy? Am I happy to be with this person? Like, am I like, I can't wait to spend the rest of my life with this person? Or like, I'm like, I should want to be with him or her, but I don't really want to, right? So just listen to your gut. Do you feel like you're talking yourself into it? That's a problem, right? Do you feel like you're talking yourself into it? Do you feel you're not really attracted to the person and you're trying to get over that, right? It's okay to not be attracted to the person right away. It doesn't have to be like, oh, the guy is like so handsome. Like maybe it's something that grows a little bit, but if it doesn't grow, you don't have to force yourself, right, to feel attracted. Okay. Steven says maybe it can grow. Yes, it can grow, but if it doesn't grow, you don't have to force yourself into it, right? So if it doesn't grow while you're dating, it's probably not going to grow while you're married, right? You don't want to necessarily take that risk of being with someone that you're not attracted to. And if you're repulsed by the person, for sure not. That's a for sure no. Okay. Can you laugh together? I think that's a big part of chemistry. Can you laugh together? Can you be playful together? Do you feel that this person really gets you? Do you feel really heard and understood by this person? Do you hear and understand them? Do you respect them? Do you feel respected by them? So these are all ways to really like check in with yourself, check in with your intuition and see, how am I really feeling about this, right? Do you feel comfortable with a person, or do you feel like you're walking on eggshells a little bit? The inner circle. Okay. All right. Another important thing that I think is to check in with your friends and family, because sometimes you don't see things, but your friends and family do, right? They love you. They're looking out for you. They're looking out for your best interests. At this point, I introduce everyone that I'm serious about to my family. I want to get their read on him. To my friends, right? I really want to get the input of people who are more objective and can see things that I might be too involved in to see myself, right? So you want to, if you have friends and family that you trust their opinion, you might want to kind of get their input because they love you and they're watching out for you and they want to make sure that the person you're with is the best person for you. Okay. At what point do you trust yourself immediately after one date or two? In terms of your intuition of what you really want? It really depends. You know, I've had people that I've dated, like the first date, it was automatically clear this person's not for me. I'm like, I'm so clear. I don't even want a second date. A nice guy, not for me. I think I dated one guy that to me seemed like he had Asperger's. And it was like, there was just no emotional connection. It was like, nope, that's a no. But then there's people that I dated for like 7 months and I couldn't put my finger on it. What was it? What was it? Why are we not getting engaged yet? Like, why are we not sure yet? Why am I not sure? Why is he not sure? And that was long distance, obviously, that we had to fly back and forth to see each other for 7 months. and we had a lot of fun together, and there were so many good qualities. And then I got some coaching, and I realized this person's not for me. I don't love him. I don't think he really gets me. He's not for me. And it took me a long time to learn how to trust myself. But that was really my longest relationship that dragged on for too long. And that's kind of one of the reasons why I got into relationship coaching, was to be able to help people stop wasting time, right? Stop wasting time dating the wrong guys or the wrong girls. Like, learn to trust yourself earlier in the process. So at this point, my 3 months is really my cutoff. You know, by 3 months, it has to be pretty serious to me to continue. Okay. If I'm still feeling very wishy-washy and unsure by 3 months, like, that's a problem. Like, I want to find out why. What's going on with my intuition? What's going on with my inner knowledge that's preventing me from really feeling all in right now, you know? Okay. So listen to your gut. And tip number 5, the last of my 5 tips, is don't settle. Don't settle. So when I was dating the first time rounds, when I was 20 years old and got married to my ex, I think I had some limiting beliefs, some preconceived notions that made me kind of come in with an attitude of settling when I think about it now. Because I came in to the dating process thinking certain things. For example, marriage is hard. You're not going to find everything you want in a guy. No one's perfect. You have to compromise. You just have to work it out. What's the difference between compromise and settling? Good question. Okay, so this is something that I've heard and that I believe is that you don't compromise before you get married. You compromise after you get married. So before you get married, you're looking, you have certain things. You have your non-negotiables. You have the things that you must have, and those are things you are not giving up, right? Those are things you need to have, and we go through that in my dating program. Is what do I need to have in order to be happy, right? And these are my non-negotiables. These are my red lines. These are my bottom lines, right? And I must have these, and I'm not going to settle for anything less than that, right? Then there's certain things on top of that. There's certain things that you might be willing to give up, right? Those are like more the icing on the cake things. But there you have your core needs that you are not giving up on. Okay. Another way to know if you're settling is if you are not excited, if you're having to talk yourself into it, like I kind of said before. Okay, so don't settle. And why do people settle? Why is it that people are willing to settle? I think it's because 2 reasons. The first is scarcity mentality. We think like, if I don't marry this guy or this girl, I'm not going to find anyone else like that person, because there's not so many great guys or girls left out there, right? We all have the scarcity mentality. I had the scarcity mentality going in the first time around at 20. So you can imagine how much harder it is when you're divorced in your 30s or 40s or however old you are, with kids and all the other factors that we have now. It makes the scarcity mentality even stronger, right? We have such a strong feeling of like, all the good guys are taken, all the good girls are taken. Whatever it is, we have a very strong scarcity mentality that prevents us from moving forward, because we have so much fear. Like, if I let this guy go, maybe I won't get anything better, right? So I think a big part of what's helped me now in my dating is I tell myself, I'd rather be single than settle. Like, I'm not going to settle. And I want to approach my dating without that desperation of like, it has to be this guy or else, I'm single for the rest of my life. It's like, okay, that's an option. But I know what it's like to be married and unhappily married And I'm not going to let that happen again, right? So I very much believe that, you will find your person. Everyone has their person, and you will find your person. Um, and to have that belief, to not live with that scarcity mentality, to have that belief that he is out there. And that's part of also what we do in my conscious dating program, is that we build your belief plan. Like I have a belief plan, which is, these are all the things I want. God, I believe that he's out there, and I believe he'll come to me at the right time. And I am not willing to settle for less than what I really, really need and want, right? So I have my core needs, and then there's the things that there is more wiggle room on. I'm not saying that I'm, you know, like, people might be worried, like, what if I'm too picky? What if I'm too picky and I'm, screening out good guys because I'm sure that the next one's going to be even better? I'm not saying to do that. I'm not saying, I'm saying that if you know your core needs, right, don't settle for less than that, right? I've dated so many quality men, and if I had the belief that I'm never going to find anyone else, I would have stopped a lot earlier in my dating process. But I've found that there are so many quality people out there, and I don't have to settle. And it's such a beautiful feeling to have that feeling of abundance, of like, your person is out there, and I'm going to believe that, right? I'm going to believe that hard for you on your behalf if you don't believe it yet for yourself. Okay, what do you think is the best way to meet someone for a serious relationship? Would be Shadchan, matchmaker, dating sites, friends, other. Do it all. Do it all. Speak to the Shadchanim, go on the dating sites, speak to your friends, go on the WhatsApp groups, go on the Facebook groups. Do it all. You might find that some dating sites are more serious than others. Maybe you want to stick to some more than others because just people get burnout. If they're on too many sites, there could be some burnout. But there are certain ones that are, more serious than others. Stephen says hishtadlus. Yes, do your hishtadlus. Do the work. Find the person. If you think that person's out there, you have the belief that that person's out there. How are you going to find him or her? Right? Okay. So scarcity mentality is the first reason why people settle. And the second reason why people settle is they have their own lack of self-esteem, right? People have their own limiting beliefs about themselves. They think, I'm too old, I'm too fat, no one wants me, I'm not good enough. If I don't, if I'm not with this person, like, no one else is going to want me, right? So people can settle because of just their own lack of confidence. So it's really, really important to address those limiting beliefs that you have about yourself. What's stopping you? What's stopping you from putting yourself out there? What's stopping you from finding the person of your dreams, right? Do you have your own thoughts about yourself that you need to work on? Or can you approach dating as like, I'm amazing, of course you want me, right? And if someone breaks up with me, I'm always like, but why? I'm amazing. Right? So can you get to that sense of real self-confidence that that you have everything you need to find your Bashar? You're the right age, you're the right height, you're the right weight, you have the right look, okay? You're in the right location, you have all the right qualities. Your Bashar is going to love you for who you are, okay? You don't have to think, if only I was 20 years younger and 20 pounds lighter, then I could find the one, right? That thinking is not going to help you in any way. All right. How do you overcome low self-esteem, and can you end up with the right person even if you still think lowly of yourself? How do you overcome low self-esteem? It's just a lot of thought work. You gotta work on your thoughts. Notice what comes up for yourself. What's coming up when you could just journal. What's your self-concept? What do you think of yourself? And then try to rewrite that story, right? So if you're saying to yourself, I'm too old, or I'm too fat, or I'm too this, or I'm too that, just rewrite your story. Say, I'm the perfect age. I'm the perfect weight. The person who My beshert will love me exactly for who I am. Give yourself some affirmations and just train yourself every day. Train yourself every day to believe in yourself and your capabilities. And I'm not saying don't work on yourself. You know, if there are things to work on it, right? You might want to get more in shape. You might want to whatever, but don't let your current state make you think that you can't find love, right? People get married at every size. People get married at every age. They get married with every kind of handicap you can think of. You know, I've seen people where I'm like, I'm for sure getting married before them because this person's a XYZ, you know, has all these things quote unquote stacked against them. Guess what? They're engaged, right? So I think that the stuff that we think are handicaps are not handicaps, right? For the person who wants you and loves you, right? I am perfectly imperfect. I highly recommend Brene Brown's work on the power of vulnerability and authenticity. Yes. Yes. Okay. So do you think you can give a person a chance if you like their inside but not their outside? I think I answered that. If you really like their inside, you can give them a chance. See if the chemistry is growing, see if the attraction is growing. If it doesn't grow ever and you still can't bring yourself to do it, don't force yourself. Okay. There's going to be someone out there who insides and outsides you like, unless that really doesn't bother you. You know, maybe the outsides don't bother you at all. But if it does bother you, then honor that. What do you think of the recent trends of online dating sites versus when we were younger? In other words, wasn't it much easier? When we were younger, was it easier? Honestly, I don't know, because I didn't really date the first time round. I got set up really quickly when I was, like I said, only 20, and I didn't date around. I didn't even have a dating profile. I didn't need to do those things then. So now I've dated a lot since my divorce. So I guess I've kind of done the things I haven't done then. In some ways it's easier, in some ways it's harder. I mean, it's easier because we have the internet, we have the dating sites, we have the things we didn't have when we were younger. We have a lot more opportunities to meet people ourselves, not necessarily through shadchanim. Stephen says there are fewer choices. Again, I think it's just a thought, you know, there's fewer choices, who cares? I only need one guy, right? One girl, if you're a guy. So it doesn't matter how many there's out there, right? All that matters is I find my one, right? If you start worrying about statistics, you're gonna like drive yourself crazy. How about age gaps, older versus younger? I think you could probably do a 10 to 12 year age gap, depending on what you're comfortable with. Okay, you're gonna have to translate that. Tafasta maruba lo tafasta. Okay. All right. So those are my 5 tips for how to, oh, if you want too much, you get very little, too many options. Okay. Rashi, Masechta. Okay. When we were younger, we had fewer choices. To find a date was easier. Yes, maybe it's easier to have less options. And now that, oh, you're saying now that the fact that we're online and there are so many options makes it harder. That is, yeah, that could be true. That could be true, that all the options make it harder. But that's one of the reasons why I say to market yourself to the few and not the many, right? That's why your profile is going to screen people out. You're going to say exactly what you're looking for. And clearly only the people who are in your parameters would reach out to you. And if they're not in your parameters, you can say goodbye. because you clearly stated it on your profile. So it's okay that there's a lot of people out there. You just have to be very specific about what you're looking for and sort through a lot of people faster. Okay. How does one spot a con? Okay, so it is important to do research. You want to Google the person, you want to speak to people who know them. I actually have a friend who's going through a second divorce now with somebody who was a total con. And she said, when you do your research, you look into them, like background check, see who this person really is, like on a really like FBI level. I don't know if I could go that deeply, but I guess she had a really bad experience. Okay. I became a Mossad agent. All right. People's online profiles make everyone look fantastic. Yeah, we all know some of the people and their flaws, and they are not transparent in those online profiles. You're right. Your profile is not going to say everything, but at least it should give the basics of what who the person is and what they're looking for, and you can see if you are compatible, at least on paper. And then, of course, you're going to meet and talk and refine it further, but at least start with the paper, right? Start with making sure that your boxes are checked. Okay. So those are my 5 tips. I think I've covered them all. I think I covered all your questions. Does anyone have any more questions? You're welcome. Oh, compatibility versus chemistry. What is the question? Which one should you have? Both, obviously. I start with compatibility. I start with making sure that everything checks out. Everything checks out in terms of your bottom line. And then, right, and the profile will kind of give you, they have to meet your minimum requirements. Are they in the right age range? Are they in the right height range? Are they in the right religious range? In my case, it's, can they relocate to Los Angeles? Do they want more kids? Those are all important to me. Bottom line, my Swiss bank accounts. Okay, so the point is the profile will only show so much. You have to meet in person to see if there's chemistry. That's just common sense, right? You're just going to have to make sure that there's more than just everything checks out on paper. Okay. Thank you, Naftali. Thank you, Gal. Yeah. Okay. So the name of the books I recommend. Okay. So I'll just put them in the chat. Okay. So we have 8 dates. We have the 7, also by John Gottman, is the 7 principles for making marriage work. And I think that's it for now. I think if I come up with anything else. Okay. So just to wrap up, I want to let you know that I do have a one-on-one coaching program for women only right now. Sorry, men. Yes, it's John Gottman. Both of those books are John Gottman. How do the men get help? That's why I'm doing this webinar. Maybe in the future I will see men, but for now I'm only doing one-on-one coaching with women. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. I know men need help just as much or more than women. You should get dating coaching as well. Perhaps in the future from me or from someone else. Thank you for the compliments. Okay, so for the women and the men, if you if you know women and you want to refer women to me, that's great too. Okay, so women, my coaching program is a 3-month coaching program where we take a deep dive into what you really want and how to get it. And you can book with me directly. I'll put my link in the chat. My website is happilyevenafter.co. And I will be doing more free events. So men, if you want to join my free events in the future, you're welcome to do that. Right now, my one-on-one coaching is with women. So happilyevenafter.co, that is my website. You can book with me on my website. I'm happy to speak to you, to have a 1-hour just discovery call, talk about your goals and your dreams and how we can best achieve that. For men, we will be doing free webinars in the future that you are welcome to join. Thank you so much for your time tonight. Have a wonderful, wonderful evening. And may you all find your happily even after. All right, bye-bye, everyone. Bye. Good night.